Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our UBC Sauder Continuing Business Studies Project Management Information webinar. My name is Raquel Collins, and I'm Associate Director here for the unit. And I also have my colleague here, Jasmine Lee, and she's a program leader. She'll be available on chat and there to help answer your questions. So thank you for joining us today. We have some very special guests, and I will introduce them today in just a few minutes. This webinar will be recorded and a follow-up email will be sent afterwards just in case you have any friends or colleagues that weren't able to make it. You'll be getting a copy of that recording if you've registered for this, and you can watch it afterwards. There will be a few opportunities for questions along the way. If you can see down in the right-hand corner, there is a chat bar. Please feel free at any time to type your questions in there, and we have a couple question sessions during this webinar that will open the floor to some of your questions in the chat bar. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please direct your questions to Dan. I've put Dan's email into the chat bar, so it's Dan Ray, dan.ray@sauder.ubc.ca. He's here to assist you throughout the webinar. So who are we? You might have known us more recently as UBC Continuing Studies, but until recently we have been UBC Continuing Studies, which is now actually Extended Learning. And as of June, our unit was actually transferred to the UBC Sauder School of Business. And with this transfer, it's really allowed the UBC Sauder School of Business to better meet the needs of professionals like you who are looking to advance their careers. With a broader variety of career-focused non-degree programs, the school will have one of the most comprehensive offerings of non-credit business and professional education in North America. So we're very happy to be joining the Sauder School of Business and our colleagues here. Today we have a few things to cover. One is a discussion about what is project management. We'll look at some of the industry trends and job outlook, and we'll have a recruitment firm here that talk about that. We have a very interesting story from one of our project management graduates, and at the end we'll talk a little bit more about the UBC Certificate and Project Management program and just give you a little bit of information about that and answer any of your questions. So today I'm very happy to present our webinar speakers. We have first is Robert Goatham. He is a program advisor for UBC Continuing Business Studies, and he is a principal at Calleam Consulting. We also have Diana Cooper, who is a recruitment consultant for Annex Consulting Group. Anastasia Koutalianos, who is a communication strategist and consultant and writer-editor from Natatodo Communications Inc. She is a graduate of our Certificate in Project Management from 2016. And of course myself here. First up, we have Robert Goatham, and we're going to talk about a project management perspective. Rob has actually been with us for quite some time. He is a very in-demand keynote speaker, and he has also been part of the Sauder School of Business adjunct professor group. A little bit about Robert. Robert is the principal of Calleam Consulting Limited and is a leading expert in the field of project management. Prior to founding Calleam, Robert gained more than 20 years in the trenches experience in senior project management capabilities for IBM, Singapore Airlines, and organizations around the world. Now, we're lucky to have him settled in Vancouver, and you'll note from his accent that he doesn't sound like he's from Vancouver, but he has been here for quite some time and has shifted his emphasis to teaching, and specifically in our UBC Sauder Continuing Business Studies programs, as well as Sauder's MBA and Executive Education programs. Robert specializes in the study of failed projects and using the lessons learned to help organizations translate hindsight from the past into foresight that can be used to ensure the success of future projects. And he'll talk a little bit about his Why Projects Failed, which is a really popular website, #1 on Google, I think it is. And he's done a lot of research in this, and he'll talk some more about that. So I'm very happy to welcome Robert. Over to you.
Thank you, Raquel. Welcome to the webinar. So I thought what I would do for you this morning is to give you a little bit of background about why project management matters to today's working professionals. To rolling, I thought I would start with a couple of definitions. First of these is a simple definition of what is a project. A project is a temporary undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Definition comes from the Institute, PMI, and it's actually a very important definition because when you look around the economy today, you'll see that a large percentage of the work that happens in organizations can be defined to be a project. We're finding more and more as the economy develops, integrates across the world, that more and more organizations are recognizing that what they are doing are indeed projects. They're organizing their work into projects. Now, to make a project a success, we need people with leadership, administrative, and organizational skills, and that's where project management comes in. So this definition of project management comes from the BC government, but I kind of like this one. I thought I would share this one with you. Project management is the art and science of managing a project from inception to closure as evidence of successful achievement of the project objectives. That definition really speaks to two points. Projects are about turning ideas, needs, and concepts into tangible outcomes and achievement. Projects, as I said, exist all around us. Somebody has an idea any time and need, and they decide to invest time, money, and resources, effort, in the hopes that they will achieve some form of beneficial outcome. Then a project exists, and a good portion of the total global GDP really is project type work. Now, projects achieve outcomes, and this is where we need to revisit our definition of stakeholders. What organizations need are people with the skills to make a success. And in order to make things organized, projects are often large scale, complex activities, and they involve.
Sorry, I'm going to interject here. I'm getting a little bit of cutting in out. It's a bit intermittent here. You're on your setup, Rob. So I'm going to switch with you so you can use my microphone. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to switch with you here. Sorry, everyone. My apologies. We'll just switch it around. Technology is when it works. When it doesn't work, it can be a little bit irritating. So we'll just give you a second and we'll have Rob start on my computer here.
Hi, everyone. I trust you can hear me correctly now. So I may be showing as Raquel. It is, of course, Robert. So I'll just restart with this slide. So projects are about adding value to an organization. When an organization decides to invest in a project, it does so in the hope that at the end of the day, value will be added to the organization and the needs of the stakeholders that that organization serves will have been met. Now, projects are complex and challenging in today's organizations. Projects involve a lot of decision making, a lot of work work, a lot of people, and a lot of logistics. And what organizations value is people who have the skills to lead in that type of environment. To do that, you need to be good at organizing things. Project management as a role is fundamentally about getting things organized. By getting things organized, people, logistics, systems, processes, that allows things to get done. And those two blue boxes I have in the middle of that row there, get things organized and get things done, those two speak to the core of what project management training is all about. We're trying through this course we offer here at UBC to give you an in-depth understanding of the recommended practices through which project managers get things organized and make things happen. And through those two, achieve results that add value to the organization. Now, it is part art and it is part science. There is a well-defined set of processes that the Project Management Institute recommends be used to get projects organized and to ensure that the organization's resources are used as efficiently as they can be. And so through our courses here, we will teach you the project management processes and practices that the Project Management Institute proposes. But here at UBC, we also recognize that it is part an art form. Projects are done by people and projects are done for people. And corralling people, as they sometimes say, is like herding cats. It takes a lot of skill, interpersonal skills and leadership capabilities to be able to navigate a project from inception all the way through to its final successful conclusion. So through the courses we offer here, we try and provide a balance between the process, the science of project management, and the art of dealing and managing and leading people. So the science portion is really about methodologies, policies, processes, and procedures. When you have a large project, you have to have practices and standards and processes in place. If you don't, then projects can quickly run out of control. And so we will try and teach you and illustrate for you through samples the recommended processes and practices as espoused by the Project Management Institute. But then we balance that with the art side. So we'll look at personalities, how to work with different types of people, how to manage expectations, motivational issues, how to deal with different cultures and the politics through which you have to navigate a project forward. So in essence, that's the core of what the program is about. It's about teaching you the fundamentals of how to get a project properly organized so that it can build and maintain momentum, and then giving you the insights and skills so that you understand the human aspects that are needed to really continue a project forward, align people, and ultimately achieve the outcomes that the organization is trying to achieve. So with that, we'll open for some questions. So if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat area.
Okay, we'll do a little switch here. So Rob, while we're waiting for some questions to come through, I did have a question for you. And so I'm going to pass the headset back to you in a minute. What types of people actually make a good project manager? Okay, back to Rob.
Well, first of all, I think you have to be goal-oriented. Projects are about changing the future. They're about achieving things. And so I think the best project managers are those who are able to visualize a future state and organize people and align activities with the ultimate goal of achieving the desired outcomes. If you lose sight of those outcomes, then you're immediately heading down the wrong road. So a good project manager needs to make sure everyone knows where we're going and keep everyone aligned. That would be the first. As a second, I would say administrative and organizational skills. In today's corporations and businesses and enterprises, the world has become more and more complex. So you have to have a strong sense of how to organize yourself and others. So those are two starting points of food for thought.
Okay, there's a few questions here, but most of these we're going to cover closer to the end, so I'm just going to hold off on that. The next question I have for Rob is, you talked a little bit about leadership here and the importance of leadership. Can you actually learn to be a leader, or are you born a leader? And can you move between the two? Here you go.
Well, certainly as project manager, we are also partly project leader. I've done a lot of research into leadership over the years, and I've been exposed to a lot of leaders. And I firmly believe that everyone can advance their leadership skills. Now, certainly everyone starts at different points. Some people are naturals and they have the ability to lead from day one with very little guidance. Other people struggle. Many people, in fact, struggle with leadership. And I think through proper guidance and insight, everyone can improve their leadership skills. Then it takes practice. And so you have to find opportunities where you can lead, reflect on how you're doing, and then develop those skills further. And the more you practice, the better you get at it.
Great, thanks, Rob. Okay, so I'm going to now move on to our next presenter. We have a look here at industry trends and outlook, and I have Diana Cooper here today. Diana is from Annex Consulting, and the president of Annex Consulting, Stacy Cernick, is actually on our advisory board and has been there for many years for our certificate in project management and business analysis. So a little bit about Diana, and welcome, Diana. Diana joined Annex in July of 2016 as a member of the recruitment team, but has been in the industry for a few years. During this time, she has been recruiting on a variety of opportunities within British Columbia's IT industry. Her dedication and passion for recruitment, coupled with strong desire to help people grow and succeed, drives her commitment to deliver excellence in her work. Throughout her time at Annex, Diana has enjoyed the opportunity, to help individuals shape their careers and find their next great opportunity. I wanted to welcome Diana and pass it over to you. Thanks, Diana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that. Thanks for the warm intro. So today we're just going to go over industry trends and different career opportunities within the project management field. So typical project management roles are, most people when they start out their project management career, they start off as a project coordinator. Some actually tend to stay as a project coordinator and just stay within that realm. And there's project analyst, and then from there you move to project manager. The program manager usually will manage, multiple project managers. And there's a portfolio manager, and then the highest rank is the PMO director. And so currently, project management opportunities in BC, there's about 2,500. Canada, there's about 1,300. Seattle, 10,000. In the United States, 300,000. So there is quite a few roles, more so in the States, but it's definitely growing within Canada as well. Project management market. In the past 90 days, we've had about 30 plus PM opportunities come through Annex, probably a bit more than that, probably closer to 40. In 2017, we've had over 150 project management positions. According to PMI's Project Management Talent Gap report, there is 15.7 million new project management roles that will be added globally across 7 industries by 2020, which is exciting. So high growth industries for project management. Well, at Annex Consulting, we mainly focus on information services, so the IT realm, but other popular areas are manufacturing, business services, finance and insurance, oil and gas, construction, and utilities. Project management, you pretty much need them for almost all industries. It just depends on, I guess, like what industry you're the most focused on. Information technology project managers. So the types of project managers that typically that we would recruit for would be like custom software project managers. So they would help out for projects that are like developing like a specific app. Commercial off-the-shelf software. So those would be for like implementations for like software such as like SAP or Oracle, other big like ERP softwares. Infrastructure, so those would be project managers setting up like data centers for large companies like IBM. Business projects where the IT is secondary focus, maybe it could just be like gathering requirements for an SAP implementation to get more on the business side to see what they need. Project management best practices, the PMO would be something like the PMO assessment and implementation. Salary and hourly rate. So these can really fluctuate depending on the company. But typically when you start off your career at $30 an hour, it's more like a junior project coordinator role. This is someone that would be like just out of school. Intermediate is about the 50-hour range. That's probably someone with like 3 to 5 years experience. $70 an hour is actually kind of low. But depends on where you're working, $70 per hour, but usually I'd say it's closer to the $80 an hour mark. Expert is, 90 plus. I've seen some people bill out as high as 140, depending on how specialized you are and depending on your experience and depending on the size and scope of each project that you're working on. Progressing as a project manager. So these are like some of the things, the foundations of being a project manager. So you have to improve your theoretical foundation, do projects of increasing complexity, work within a PMO environment, always deliver within scope, quality, and time. Of course, that's not always doable, but as long as you're learning, from your mistakes, engaging in ongoing continuous learning, develop people management skills, and most importantly, establish your reputation, build long-term relationships, because that's how you're going to continuously find work. So any questions?
Great. Thanks, Diana. This is really interesting information, especially the stats on some of the job opportunities. I did have a couple of questions for you, and one thing was you mentioned there are jobs and roles in infrastructure deployment, and then another where there's like business projects where business is a secondary focus. Can you provide a little more details on what that means specifically?
So for the infrastructure focus would be, for example, if like a client, like we'll just use IBM for instance, every large organization usually has a data center, and a data center is like where all their main servers are, usually nowhere near where their actual like head office is. So an infrastructure project manager would go in if they needed to do a data center move and just do all the planning out for that data center move. So that'd be more on the infrastructure side. And then I guess focusing more on where business is more of a secondary would be, I guess, kind of putting that ahead of like the technical requirements. For example, if they're doing an ERP implementation of a software such as an SAP product, where they would just gather more business requirements so to make it more functional for business users such as the accounting department. So gathering requirements from them, I guess someone department specific, and then using that when they're conducting the implementation. So it's quite
Great. I see that there's a question here in the chat. Travis has asked, what are those average hour per salary numbers based on?
Those are based on typically from Indeed, from our findings from Indeed, and then also just an average of what we've seen from our clients as well.
Great. I just have one more question for you. You talked a little bit about the project coordinator role and then the project manager role. How many years does it take to, do you need to be a project coordinator? If you're new into this and you become a project coordinator to move into something like a project manager role, is there like a sort of a standard number of hours, or is there something you could ballpark there?
I would say typically I've seen it happen within around 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years from project coordinator to a PM.
Okay, and just one more question was, you talked a little bit about the different domains or specific industry sectors, and I think this is important. When we have a lot of students in the program that come from a lot of different domains, is there a need to really know the product well? Like, do you have to be working that industry to be able to be a project manager in that industry? What's important there? Is that sort of standard that you start in that industry, or is there opportunities to break into a new industry without having previously worked there, but just with a project management background?
It depends on the client, but typically once you become a project manager, you usually stick within one industry because it is beneficial to kind of know the people that you're working with, know the industry itself, and just be familiar with the types of products that you're working with. So typically I don't really see it. In fact, I don't think I've really ever seen it where someone jumps from industry to industry. It's not, it's definitely, I'd say, more beneficial to build on your career when you're sticking within one industry. You don't necessarily have to do the exact same type of project, but it is more beneficial to stick within one industry.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Diana. That was really great perspective on the industry trends and outlooks. I'm now going to start to move along on to hear from Anastasia. So she's going to give us a graduate perspective. Anastasia was a graduate of our project management program in 2016, and she was part of our full-time program. A little bit about Anastasia. She is a communications strategist, writer, owner of Nada Todo Communications Incorporated. Anastasia is a writer and editor and communications consultant and has worked freelance since 2003. Previous clients include Habitat for Humanity, Greater Vancouver, Reconciliation Canada, Small Housing BC, Webside Seniors Hub, Government of Canada, G&F Financial Group, and Canada-Wide Media. She is also the co-founder of Talkin' Trash, a bi-weekly radio show on Co-op Radio, and the BC Tiny House Collective that shape their careers and find their next great opportunity. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Anastasia. Welcome, Anastasia. Are you there, Anastasia? Or did we lose you?
Sorry, I think I pressed the mic and then it muted me again. So can you hear me now?
Yep, we can
Hello?
hear you perfectly.
Perfect. So as mentioned, I did the full-time course last year, so it was March till the beginning of June. And in my course, there was quite a mix of students from different areas. I, of course, come from a social science, research and art background, but there were a lot of people from engineering, construction, oil and gas, and some people that were also in the creative field. So how I came to project management was I have an honors bachelor, so I studied French literature at University of Toronto and later decided to get into magazine publishing at a time when probably print was on its last legs. However, I decided to focus a lot in terms of writing and editing and extended, I guess, my studies into plain language and usability studies. I did find at a certain point that around 2010, I was laid off from I was a research consultant with the federal government for about 8 years. studying Indian residential schools. And it was at that point when my contract wasn't renewed that I did find that it was quite difficult to find work in communications. That being said, I was kind of torn between either looking at business management or project management, and I decided to go forward on that, and I think it was a good choice. The reason why I decided to do the certificate and full-time was I wanted to be able to just come out of it quicker. So I did the 3 to 4 months. I was then able to get back into the workforce. It also kind of expanded my own kind of skill set. So I was looking at how could I have kind of or expand upon my writing and editing, but also have it so that there was a project management component to it, just for hireability, but also so that I could have a greater sense of how to run my own projects, because while I do manage other people's projects, I also create my own. So how to better, I guess, coordinate teams, stakeholder engagement, and a lot of this came through the course itself. So I still kind of dabble in the nonprofit research and writing kind of industry, so might not be necessarily the most traditional form of project management. But I have to say that the course itself really sharpened my tools, in the sense that you have a framework on which to build upon. If you want to go forward and do the PMP, there's that option, and I think it sets you up so that you can do it. I know that I have some, colleagues and friends that have taken the part-time program, and that suited them more, just because they wanted to be able to work full-time and not necessarily do the 9 to 4, which was perhaps, not everyone's, I guess, first choice. That said, the program itself is very time-consuming. But you come out of it, I think, pretty well prepared to be able to tackle project management or refine whatever skills that you had going forward. So I already had experience doing coordination and event management, so I wasn't totally green. I do think, again, that it really created just a framework and expanded upon my knowledge of making sure in terms of creating project implementation and having really a good sense of how to scope, to deal with the sponsor. But stakeholder engagement was really interesting to me. I think has a lot to do with the communication side of things, being that's my background, and also the fact I really liked the conflict resolution, which I think is really important with a team. It's not just about meeting deadlines and creating a quality product, but also making sure that you are supporting your team and able to resolve any kind of issues as you go along. So in future, I say here I want to expand into project management and develop initiatives and build community, and I think that you could really do this through project management. I do probably a bit of both in terms of program and project. Right now I am working on the BC Tiny House Collective. So that's a self-created project, and we are basically collaborating with municipalities, including the City of Vancouver and MPs, as well as BC Housing, to really see that tiny houses can be incorporated within municipal strategies and housing planning. And from there, I've actually got quite a bit of work through housing. And I think maybe to speak to what Diana was saying, I think it's important to perhaps have a focus. I think it's always good to be an expert in your field when you're a project manager, but I think that social sciences allows you to have maybe a bit more flexibility, especially seeing that I have the strategy and communication element as well. So here's, I guess, the day in the life, my responsibilities, and this I've given the example of the BC Tiny House Collective. So it's looking at strategic planning and facilitation, So that's industry, both public engagement, and really having a sense of their needs. I think that this is one of the most important things that I learned out of the program, is really just doing your due diligence and research before you actually move forward on a project, to really have a sense of the strategy of your sponsor and the vision, and making sure that whatever you design going forward is in line with those objectives, but also the project objectives as well. Outreach, and I think that comes, also having a sense of branding, developing and executing programming. So this again always comes back to facilitation and making sure that you're creating something of value, and I think that that's super important. We're also going a bit, a step into more of a creative side of things, but then doing documentary films, sponsorship acquisition, and that's mostly to do with event management. In May, we did an event with Science World, and most of this really has to do with relationship building. And I think networking is super important, and also following through. And I think what's great about this program is it doesn't just teach you about the basics, or doesn't just give you the puzzle pieces, but gives you a greater sense of how the bigger picture, I guess, and how managing a team effectively really just has great effect, in making the project, I think, even more valuable to those who are interacting with it, be it your users, but also for the people that you're developing the project or the program for. And lastly, doing a lot of media outreach and writing. So I don't think that a project manager wears one hat. I think there's several hats, and I think that this program gives you a good sense of all of that. I think I have one more slide. Oh, so my top skills, if I had to list them, would be time management, and I think Rob mentioned this. Really, a project manager is an organizer ultimately. But I think, if I had to maybe revise some of this, I would say it's really having a good sense of research and doing that work beforehand, so that you really have a sense of what are the ultimate goals of this project. One, so that you can communicate it to stakeholders and anyone else going forward, but really have a sense of, gives your project direction. Flexibility and adaptability, I probably should have put that first. I think being organized is great, but also having, being open to change, because, or agile, which I maybe would have hoped that the program would have expanded on a little bit if I had to add anything to that. I think agility, especially in the tech world, is really big. And how to implement that, I think, is really critical, to have an understanding of really measuring your project as you go forward, and having a sense of when to drop things that aren't working. Delegation, and I think this is something I'm still working on, like when do you oversee and how to actually bring in your team members and create an environment of trust, so that you don't do the project yourself. And I think, we often see young project managers or coordinators that are simply doing it all, and that might be just a sign of greenness, but also I think it shows great strength to really play off of the strengths of your team and know when you may need to do some things on your own. Strategy, I think, is imperative to any project. Again, going back to what I mentioned before, if there's no sense of vision from the sponsor, then you really need to take it upon yourself to make sure that it's aligned with something more high level and strategic. Otherwise, I think it can fall flat. I know that I've worked with a lot of not-for-profits that wanted to do everything. And I think at a certain point in time, you really need to look at the resources and what the added value is, not only just to the sponsor and the organization, but look at it from a community lens. I think that we fail to see that we really need to give back in some way. But I guess that could just be really an ethos more than anything. And I think strong communicator, verbal and written. The program is interesting because from the onset, what you do is, there was about, I think, less than 30 students in our class. You have everyone from different fields, and we were put into projects, into team projects, arbitrarily from like day one. So you really get a sense of, you know, a bit of a real world experiment in that you're working with people, one from different industries, but also from different backgrounds and different work ethics. And so that communication factor is huge. You also get to work, and I'll speak from the full-time program because I don't know really what the other ones did to the same extent, but you had an option of about 3 or 4 projects that you were able to tackle. You selected one pretty much within week 1, and you had to run through this entire project through the whole framework of kind of the PMP, going from execute, basically implementation, all the way to closure from this one project. So you really got a sense of how to create the deliverables for this one particular project. And you got feedback from the instructors. I thought the instructors were really great. They were either in project management themselves or experts in their field, be it, you know, conflict resolution or strategic planning. I think that, you know, they were always open to feedback. And what was really interesting is that you also got feedback throughout the program itself, meaning, you know, the lead instructor would sit down with you and your team so that you could really kind of hash out what was working and what wasn't, and also give you an opportunity to really see, as a project manager, where do your strengths and weaknesses lie in terms of communication or delegation, flexibility, time management, all the lot. It'll definitely challenge you. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I wish you all the best if you decide to take the program. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Excellent, and thank you, Anastasia. I think you gave a really great overview of the program and your experience here, and I can see you've probably answered a lot of the questions that were coming up in the chat earlier. There was a question here from Ramiro, who he asked, how do you normally manage the risk that comes in with being flexible or adaptable? Doesn't it affect the whole project most of the time? You mentioned that in your last slide. Do you want to?
For sure. But I think that really depends, one, on the project and one on your approach. I think that the reality is that we plan according to a certain environment and you know, assuming, and that's largely, I think, has to do with it. We make a lot of assumptions in terms of, you know, the parameters, the team, what we can and cannot do based on resources, and, you know, initial scope. But I do think that once you get into the project, you eventually see that maybe you can't do it all, or that might have been a good idea but won't work now that you have maybe taken a few more steps into scoping out the project, or you've spoken to stakeholders and it might have been very interesting to the stakeholder or the sponsor, but not to your stakeholders or partners. So I think that you really manage, I don't want to say that it's a, you really need to know the looming risks when you start off the project, but I think once you get further into it, you'll see different risks pop up. So I think it's just having that agility or foresight, or at least keeping your eyes open throughout the duration of the project, and not just assuming that because you set out exclusions and risks and assumptions in your first scope statement that you're settled and you're good to go. I think that it's just a matter of the project is being managed from day one till the last day. So I don't know if I've answered that in the most straight way, but I think that the flexibility is just knowing when you need to kind of shift, not necessarily that you make it so that it's an entirely different project.
Great. Thanks, Anastasia. Just another question here. I just was curious. So, you know, we're getting a lot of text in the chat here, and it's a very active chat. And I see that Jasmine and Rob are answering a lot of questions here. I'm hoping they're getting to all your questions. I'm trying to pick out ones that might be need a little more detailed answer. And if I miss it, definitely we can follow up with you afterwards. But I have a little more information to talk about the program shortly. I just had a question for Anastasia, though, is in what way did the program help you get more opportunities or perhaps open doors?
Yeah, I've thought about this before we even started the webinar. Was it the program itself, or did I already have the skill set in order, and that was leveraged just through connections and what have you? And I think it's a bit of both. I think it adds, you know, to a resume to have UBC on it, and of course project management. But I have to say, more than anything, it's probably confidence. So it's probably just built that, and I have now something kind of to rely on. I know kind of what needs to be included in a scope statement. I by no means go to the extent that the program, I think, the detail that the program has taught us, although I think it's important to have that knowledge. It's scaled, obviously, because I don't work with massive companies. So I might not need that that excessive sense of reporting. At the same time, it's really allowed me to make things super concise and protect me also as a contractor or consultant. And by that I mean being very clear on what I can deliver based on the timelines and not necessarily offering the moon. I'd have to say, though, that that was maybe a skill I already knew coming in, just because I've been freelance for a long time, and you know, you burn yourself a few times and then you learn quick. But yeah, I think the program really showed me my own weaknesses in terms of project management and even team coordination. You know, there were some challenges within the team project, and that was because, you know, a lot of people were working as well, so the time commitments were a little bit different. But I think it really showed, you know, I had an opportunity to express things that maybe in past projects I would have kept silent. So I think it really will teach you or give you what you choose to get out of the program. I made a point of connecting with instructors afterwards. You know, I think I've expanded my network because of it. I have kept in contact with some of the instructors still, and some of the students. So I do think that it offers you as much as you, as much effort as you put into it. I have a lot of friends from the program that are doing things in project management or coordination or something to that effect. So I think it is a stepping stone. It has opened the door for a lot of people to do the PMP as well. If that, you know, I was considering it. I think at this point I'm not as interested because I have a lot of contracts, but maybe in the future I would. But I think I'm more inclined to even look at program management. So yeah, I think it's an asset. I really do. I think, though, that the level of it being an asset really depends on the individual itself and what skill sets they came to before and now bring. I think because I also do writing and editing, I have that ability to also do templates and scope statements and reporting that strengthen perhaps the portfolio that I bring.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Anastasia. I think I really liked one of your points there is, you know, what you'll get out of the program is really kind of, it goes hand in hand as the amount of effort that you put into it. And you were obviously very motivated. You are working with teams, and you know, you're coming out of this with skills that you've been able to leverage and use within your industry. And, you know, you do have a very interesting background coming from communications and media that really, you know, kind of highlights that path that's not maybe typical of what some of the people expect in project management. Often you think of project management is IT or construction, but it's not. And as you've probably seen from a number of your classmates, is they're coming from a variety of fields, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my next few slides, and that they've also been able to be successful no matter what industry they're in. It's not just about IT, it's not just about construction, it can work with any industry. So thank you very much, Anastasia. I'm just going to move on and talk just a little bit very briefly about the program and leave some time for a little bit of questions afterwards. So I'm just going to give us an overview of our certificate in project management. This is me, Raquel Collins, and here is what we're going to talk about. So we have the part-time program that is starting on September 6th and it runs till December 6th. This is a 3-month program where there is classes on evenings and weekends throughout. It allows you to complete that core quite quickly, and you cover all of your project management essential topics, and then you get into, afterwards, once you complete that core, you have an option of taking a specialization, and your options are strategic leadership, which is offered through Sauder School of Business Executive Education, and those are sort of 1 to 2 3-day courses here at Robson Square. We also have a specialization in business analysis, and this is 100% online. Those courses run over usually a duration of anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, and you're, you know, spending about 6 to 10 hours per week within the program. It has quite a bit of flexibility, so those people who are traveling or working like to take that online program. And then we have our new Agile Leadership Program. This one, and I think you had mentioned this, Anastasia, but it would have been good to have a little bit more Agile skills, and you do cover some Agile within the full-time program, but we get into the specialization within the part-time program, and you go more in depth with Agile leadership. And this is 2-day courses held here at Robson Square as well. We are still accepting applications for the part-time program if you're interested in that, but hurry, because we are starting on September 6th. And then we have the 100% online PM Fundamentals is the first course that starts that program. It's 6 courses. Each of the courses run over 6 weeks to 8 weeks. It starts on September 12th as the first fundamentals course. So there's kind of, that's the entry point, and then there's a succession of courses that you take following that. So the first one is September 12th, or if you can't make that one, we have another one starting on October 18th. These classes do fill up very quickly, so I think we only have a couple spots left in the fundamentals. That's starting on September 12th, and same with, we have this fast track option. And this is where we've kind of combined a couple classes, 2 to 3 classes together, depending on which fast track option you're starting with. And it starts on September 5th. It allows you to complete the program easily within 9 months. So if you take the fast tracks and then you take your applied program management, the capstone course, you should be able to complete this program very quickly. So if that's your desire, then you can, I would look at that fast track option. We are also filling up in that class. I think we only have about 3 spots left in that as well. So please sign up soon if you're interested in that. And talk a little bit about who should participate. So we have a variety of participants in the program. We look at sort of the mid-career. We've had a lot of those people that are kind of mid-career in developing project managers, those who are wanting to build sort of more specialized skills in leading projects. And, you know, it does build a stronger foundation and provides confidence in your skills and moving forward. So if depends on where you are in your career, there is still an opportunity within this program for you. Managers and specialists looking to fill knowledge gaps and add project management expertise to their skill sets. and that's quite common. We also have project team leads and coordinators and planners requiring a structured program for applied and practical career development. And then we often have experienced project managers that are seeking more of that formal university training or looking for some career advancement. It really does help you build the solid skills in project management and related areas. Like I said, we do touch on the agile aspects as well. And it does help you progress through your career. You may not need to be a project manager or a PMP in your job, but the skills and the knowledge that you gain through this can be advantageous to your career. So I'm going to pass it over to Rob. He's going to talk a little bit about what's special about the UBC approach. And I think this will probably answer some of the questions that you've had throughout the chat. And over to Rob.
Thanks, Raquel. So as some people in the chat forum there have noted, that this course we offer, our similar courses are offered in other institutions, but I think there are some very solid reasons why the UBC course would be the best option for many people. Firstly, we have developed this course using industry professionals, so everyone that you'll come through and meet has in the trenches experience of working as project managers, and that is something which cannot be replicated. You can read all you want about project management, but it's not until you've been in the room with the senior executives and you've had to sort of maneuver and navigate a project forward that you really understand. So all of our team here are very experienced in doing that. The second thing that we can offer, which no other university in the world can offer, is that the website which Raquel referred to earlier, my Why Projects Fail website, is the world's leading reference material for the causes of project failure and what it takes to make a project a success. So I'm the editor of that website, and hence a lot of the knowledge from that has flowed forward into the program, and no other university in the world can offer that. And in fact, through our web stats, we know that most of the top universities in the world are visiting that website and drawing upon that material for their courses. But here at UBC, you have the origins of that material and all the research that went into that. So we have industry experience and we have the research that backs that up, and that's a formula which nobody else, I think, can replicate. So I'll pass back to Raquel.
Okay, so the next one, actually, I'm going to pass it back over to Rob, just because he's dealt with a lot of the students in the class. He's worked with them on teams here at UBC Robson Square in our project management part-time, full-time program. I just want to know if you could talk a little bit to some of the student profiles that we've had in the class, and they come from a variety of industries, as you can see on this slide. I'm just going to let Rob talk about that. Hold on one second.
Yeah, well, project management is a part of a professional toolkit, and I think as people grow their careers, people in all sectors and all stages in their careers are recognizing the value of having those project management skills in that toolkit. So we get a very broad demographic. It would probably be easier for me to name industries we haven't had attend than it would be for me to list the industries who have attended. In terms of age groups, we have people who are in the earlier years of their careers, so mid-20s upwards, and we've had people who are, even working towards retirement. We've had people as high as 60s attend the classes because they see the need to formalize maybe the knowledge that they'd built up over their careers and put all of the pieces together into one master picture. So it's never too late, I think, to take a class like this and cement that knowledge into a proper structure and formula.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Rob, for that. So I just want to talk very briefly just about some of the grad feedback that we've had. We actually did a survey in 2015, and we talked a little bit to our graduates just to see what has the program done for them. And a lot of them had said that the program was able to enable them to increase their responsibility in their current position, or engage in new opportunities, projects, and partnerships, or in some cases change careers. And one of the questions we always ask is, would you recommend this program to others? And 92% said that they would recommend this program. So we're very happy about this feedback. And as we had mentioned earlier, this is an award-winning program. We take a lot of pride in our talent, our instructors, and the curriculum that we are offering throughout this program, and the impact that it has as well on the graduates. I wanted to just mention a couple of the opportunities for networking locally and globally. There are a bunch of different communities that you can join. There's a Project Management Institute, which I'm sure you're aware of, the PMI. We are actually a global registered education provider, and so any of our courses are eligible for professional development units towards getting, well, once you have your PMP, to use as renewing your designation. There's a few other links here for some professional development and mentoring: the pmvolunteers.org, the pmi.bc.ca, that's the local chapter here, and then the pmi.org as well. And just to highlight again, just the start of the Project Management Part-Time Program is September 6th, and the online first course fundamentals is starting on September 12th. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we have @UBCCS Digital is our Twitter handle. And if you also have questions, there's a few ways to do it. Because we're getting close to the end here, we'll try to continue and leave the chat open for a few more minutes just to answer some of your questions. But we can also follow up with you afterwards if you would like to just put your email in there or send us a quick note. Here is our contact information. So there's my email, there's a website up here at continuingstudies.sauder.ubc.ca, my email as well as Jasmine's email, and if there's any questions for Rob, we can definitely pass that along to him. I'm just looking at the chat. Before I register, I need to visit your consultant. Which days of the week are you available? Okay, Jasmine will follow up with you on that, because we do have office hours that we could meet with somebody in person. What else? I think cost of the programs has been covered. Great. I think we got most of your questions. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to all of our presenters, Robert Goatham, Anastasia, and Diana, for helping us out today. This was a really good overview and highlight of the industry, of project management, of the program. I'm hoping we answered all of your questions, and I'm really happy to have you join our webinar. Please remember that this is recorded, so if there's any point that you missed within this, you will get the recording, and that will be sent within the next few days, and you'll be able to listen to that afterwards. So thank you very much, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in one of our classes.